Am I the butthole for telling my professor that a classmate stopped being in my lab group because I'm Jewish? This happened before COVID, but I recently got an email from my professor asking for detailed description of what exactly happened anyways. A classmate, 20s male, and I, 22 female, happened to sit next to each other in physics, and my professor did they get to know who you sit by shindig, and we got to talking and exchanged numbers. We also chose to be in the same lab group as well. We got pretty close during the semester and would study and go to our professor's office hours together as well. We go to talking about religion with our lab group, and when I started talking about being Jewish, he was quiet and didn't say much the rest of the lab. At the end of class, as I usually walk with him to the library, he was pretty quiet again and said he wasn't going to library and just going home. After asking what was up, he just straight up told me, "I don't think we should hang out that much anymore." When I asked why, he just said, "You're a Jew," and when I pressed further, he just said he doesn't hang out with Jews. I was stunned and just walked away. The next week he was in a different lab group. When I went to office hours during that week, my professor asked where he was and why he switched lab groups. This is where I think I was the butthole. I could have said I have no idea. But instead I told my professor that he probably switched groups because I'm Jewish. My professor didn't understand, and I explained that he told me the week prior that he doesn't hang out with Jews and he doesn't think that me and him should hang out anymore because I'm Jewish. My professor told me that was disgusting behavior and he apologized on the behalf of that classmate. I didn't think anything of it. Until the next week I got a text from the classmate saying that he can't believe I told on him and he's in trouble. I didn't respond and blocked his number. I don't know what happened to him, but he didn't come to class much after then, soon not at all. He did end up telling one of my other lab partners that I was the reason for him to switch lab groups and that I was to blame on why he wasn't going to class. I ended up getting an email from someone on the board of the school asking for what happened, but I didn't reply. And my professor told me I didn't have to worry about him anymore. Am I the butthole for telling on a classmate to my professor? Not the butthole, you didn't do this to him, he did this to himself. You shouldn't have to lie so people don't know he is an anti-Semitic butthole. Plus, if he treated you like this, there is 99.99% chance he has treated other Jewish people poorly. It's just crazy. Before he knew I was Jewish, we would go get food after studying. Hang out on weekends. He was a friend. Then he just became so cold and dismissive of me during class. Like I didn't exist, even though for months we hung out weekly. Yeah, it's honestly scary how people like that can be so two-faced. If they don't view you as in one of categories of people they hate, they can be really good at blending into your life. I just don't understand. He was so kind to me before he knew I was Jewish. I think I had a crush on him, which makes me disgusted in myself. When I would answer a question wrong, he would whisper typical Jew or laugh at me, but before he would explain how to get the right answer. How he could flip a switch too easily? Please answer that email. You deserve justice. The way he acted toward you is absolute BS. You need to respond to that email and tell them the truth. Too many times we sweep crap like this under the rug because we are trying to be nice. We owe nothing to anti-Semitic creeps, nothing, and they deserve the rightful judgment. It is completely up to you whether you continue the conversation with the school. I hope you do. This is a much bigger issue than a guy being a jerk to you personally. This is anti-Semitism and it cannot be tolerated. Allowing such behavior is endorsing it. The school needs to ensure the safety and education of its Jewish students, including you, and that means having consequences in place for this jerk's behavior. The boys in my chemistry class in high school used to sit behind me and throw pennies at me throughout the entire class. Every day for a year. I wish I would have told someone, but I was scared. You might be a Jew, not that that's a bad thing, but you are also a human. Only the worst kind of buttholes treat others as subhumans. You deserve to be treated like a human. It's not so complicated, and if someone can't understand that, then that is their failing and they should pay a steep price for harboring such a toxic ideology. I hope you are surrounded by people who grade you better now. If a marginalized person doesn't challenge their oppressors, I don't think that's endorsing it. It can be straight up dangerous for some people. Agreed, at the individual level. Safety comes first. As an institution, the school is endorsing the behavior if they do not respond. My husband is on the alumni board of the small liberal arts college where he was a graduate, and my boys are now students. These are exactly the sorts of issues he would like to know about and handle as he works to create greater diversity and safety for all on campus. Of course, it's up to you and your comfort level, but I hope you won't consider it tattling to respond to that email. Instead, you'd be actively contributing to a better campus for all who come after you, if your board actually means well. Edit, NTA, and please don't feel responsible for any of this. You did nothing wrong. You responding to this ensures he can't do it to anyone else and will be held responsible. Switching like that over a religion is not normal. Yup. Answer the email. It's not tattling, it's a wake-up call for him. You don't want him to think there is no repercussions for blatant anti-Semitic behaviors, because he will eventually be an older adult doing things like this, possibly in a position of power. I wouldn't let those beliefs just go unchecked. It's totally up to you, of course, but you have an opportunity to ensure he get called out and hopefully corrected. So many people do not get that chance. His asinine beliefs are not a reflection of you. You are under no obligation to protect racists. He did this to himself, let him be a big boy and deal with the fallout of his decisions. Original poster NTA. The reason the professor took it so seriously is because it is serious. It's a good thing you brought it up. People with that kind of prejudice rarely are only prejudice against one group too. You tend to find people who are racist are also homophobic and Islamophobic, etc. You are likely not the only person he's treated badly because of an identity that person has no control over, nor the last. So even if you feel, well, it's fine, I can deal with it, if it helps you feel better, think about whether you would want it reported if you saw him treat someone else like he has treated you. I know I sometimes ignore abuse to myself, because I don't want to rock the boat or get someone in trouble, that I absolutely would be furious witnessing happening to someone else, but standing up for yourself stands up for those other people. He needs to be told his behavior is inappropriate, and if the school decided to prevent him from attending, they did so to protect other students' rights to attend the school without dealing with prejudice and bigotry. He's the reason he is in trouble. It truly sucks that he has put you in this situation. The sad truth about the way he treats now versus before he knew, is that before he thought of you as full person. Now because of his bigoted worldview he thinks of you as lesser than him. It's absolutely horrible, but it's the way people like that think. They can be very kind to the types of people they deem worthy, but underneath it all is still a bigot. I'm half German and grew up in Germany, so the Holocaust and anti-Semitism was big in school. This was common when Hitler came to power. Neighbors and friends told on each other who was a Jew and who was hiding a Jew and badmouthing people they had no problem with prior. It's just the way these people think, because it's an easy fix and they can blame their problems on somebody else than themselves. They think the Jews are responsible for all of our problems. Of course this is BS, so they don't like them based on that. Also, Hitler believed in some BS that they were inferior physically, etc. I hope this doesn't happen to you again, but it could, so call them out and recommend a visit to a concentration camp when they visit Europe. Sorry this happened to you. Edit, not the butthole. I heard somewhere that Germany have quite in-depth lessons on Hitler, Holocaust in their schools. I wondered if it was true. Thank you. Kudos to Germany. A lot of others would sweep things under the carpet. Yes, it is taught multiple times, and every kid in school usually has to visit a concentration camp. We still have a rise in right-wing extremism, meaning we have more to do, but there are some good things in place. The general consensus is that while it is not the fault of my generation what happened, it is our responsibility to make sure it never happens again. Ah, my heart, that's a tale. I'm so happy to hear that. I work at a nursing home and we had a new admit last night. He's a German immigrant who came here. I live in the US, in '59. We were talking on the ride back about his life. He's from Hamburg, missed the draft for World War II by 1 year. His cousin wasn't so lucky, pretty sure he was drafted into the defense of Berlin, considering the admit said the cousin was drafted a couple months before the end of the war. I was in awe of the story he was telling me. If it wasn't for COVID, I'd grab a notebook, hang out with him, and start writing his story down. Yes, it's true. I think the Germans as a nation have been truly admirable in their reaction to all that. Everyone learns about it, nothing is swept under the carpet. Unlike the Italians and Japanese, whose governments have never apologized for any of the atrocities. I learnt a fair amount in school too, in the UK, and my children learnt it here in France. NTA, if you don't want to get in trouble for being a bigot, don't be a bigot. Your ex-friend is an anti-Semitic and his views are totally unacceptable, and that's what happens when you behave unacceptably. People do not accept it. Your professor, on the other hand, is a true monch. I think that ignoring him is the right move right now, but I wouldn't ignore the school board. Hey original poster, leaving this here because I want to make sure you see it. I think you'll be interested in Talia Lavin's book Culture Warlords. A big part of it is about how anti-Semitic ideas play into the white supremacist imagination. You are not the butthole, in universities, and literally every other institution as well, should have zero-tolerance policies for anti-Semitism. The best you can do is respond to both your professor and the board member, and don't take crap from anyone. You didn't get your classmate in trouble, and his behavior isn't normal and should not be normalized. There is 99.99% chance he has treated other Jewish people poorly. I will say there is 99.9% he treats other minorities poorly. Just to piggyback on this, some racists are selective, but most racists are bored racists. Anti-Semitics also tend to discriminate other minorities. Racism is pervasive and entrenched in our society, but it doesn't. We should take the high road and remain silent. Jewish people, people of other faiths, members of the LGBTQ community, non-whites, women, it rarely stops with one category. Not the butthole. Please respond to the board member's email and tell them what happened. Your classmate is anti-Semitic. Edit, to correct the spelling of anti-Semitic. He's not safe for others to be around and needs to fully be reprimanded. You would be the butthole if you don't respond to the board member. Other Jewish folks don't need to be hurt by this person as well. I don't know though, it's also a little unfair to expect someone to take this burden on themselves. Everyone handles bigotry differently, and I wouldn't say they're a butthole for not feeling up to dealing with this so head-on. Also obviously not the butthole. Yeah, it's just an unfortunate situation. I would argue that it is ops' duty to talk to the school board so that other Jewish kids don't get hurt by this, but I also wouldn't think badly of original poster if they decided not to. It's just a crafty fact of life that it's often up to the victims to deal with the people harassing them, since the victims are such a crucial part of the case. Not the butthole, obviously. I recommend responding to that email so that he doesn't hurt other people. After all, who says that his anti-Semitism stops at unfriending people? But ultimately it's your call. If you think it's going to be a big burden on you, or that you might be putting yourself in the line of fire, you don't have to, though. I don't think it's fair to say someone would be a butthole if they don't have the ability to take up the emotional labor of dealing with this situation further. If original poster can, they should. Anti-Semitic buttholes are bad, and the school dealing with them is good, but being the victim can be emotionally draining, and it is an unreasonable burden to demand more of them if they don't want to continue it. I don't think it's fair to say someone would be a butthole if they don't have the ability to take up the emotional labor of dealing with this situation further. If original poster can, they should. Anti-Semitic buttholes are bad, and the school dealing with them is good, but being the victim can be emotionally draining, and it is an unreasonable burden to demand more of them if they don't want to continue it. I get where you're coming from, but I have to say, if I found out later that someone could have prevented something bad from happening to me but they chose not to, I would be pretty pissed. Sometimes the right thing to do is hard. We still need to do it. Welp, I'm going to be as direct as to say you need to drop that line of thinking. It's one thing to blame someone who was in a position of power, i.e. a police officer who neglected to do their duty, but blaming other victims is toxic. There's so much that could be going on in those victims' lives, not the least of which is the actions wrought upon them by the wrongdoer to start with. We'd probably have ended slavery decades prior if every black man in it had rebelled. Why didn't they? Because, well, their lives were at stake. Should we be blaming them for not throwing themselves on the sword so the future for someone else could be brighter? As someone who suffered social kickback for more than a year for reporting bigotry to the point that my school experience bordered more on terrorism than anything else, original poster would not be an AH if they didn't go through with this. It's not fair for you to pass that judgment. Do I stand by what I reported in college? To hell and back. But that was my choice and my choice alone. Respond to the board. Tell everyone what happened. Anti-Semites must be called out and socially isolated. It isn't even for you, He's probably treating other Jewish people out there really bad. We are living during a time in which we can learn from the past and act before it repeats itself. Anti-Semitic rhetoric became a new normal early on last century, and eventually somewhere between 6 and 11 million Jews lost their lives to the final solution. If you feel as if you can handle the board's inquiry, I'd respond and let them know the A to Z of it. Edit spelling. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube and share them with your friends. We welcome your comments below. Press to start another of our videos.